This episode is sponsored by Day by Day Book, a guided journal that helps you navigate the ups and downs of change while creating a life you love. For more information on the classic, recovery, or teen day book, go to livedaybyday.com.
The journey of living my yes has essentially included this untaming, unwinding from these stories that say, you need a man to survive. You can't do this on your own. Because only then could I really include my full self in my life and not be opposed to having a partner in my future, but more of recognizing I would be choosing a partner to contribute to the wholeness that I already am, not from needing to survive.
Welcome to Journeys Through Change, a podcast that inspires women to let go of the fear and say yes to possibility. I'm your host, Noelle Van, an author, creator, and empowerment coach who spent years in corporate America helping innovators and leaders ride the waves of change with ease and grace. I now work with women to step into change and unleash the power they have to create a life they love. Whether you're contemplating a change in your career, relationship, health, lifestyle, or anything in between, nothing's off the table. I'll be offering up simple insights to help you manage the ups and downs of change and sharing interviews with successful women who took a leap of faith to create the life they knew they were meant to live, sharing their wisdom, advice, and all the juicy lessons they learned along the way. So get cozy in your favorite comfy chair and let's get started. Have you ever met someone who personifies hope, humor, and an all-in approach to life? Megan Walrod is one of those people. Whenever I meet someone like Megan, I think to myself, what sparks their enthusiasm about life in general? And I'm always surprised to hear about the steps that brought them to this place. Over 15 years ago, Megan had moved from Colorado to California on the other side of divorce. She was in a new and loving relationship when she found herself unable to shake a feeling that something important was missing. She had always turned to journaling to help her find her inner wisdom, and one morning while writing, she asked the universe to help unveil what she couldn't see. Out of the blue, she simply heard, "You've been living your maybe." From that point forward, Megan knew she needed to make a change. She went through the difficult yet liberating process of leaving her relationship and embarked on a journey to find herself and embrace all the possibilities that life had in store for her. Ultimately, she wrote a novel that speaks to her experience and the experience of so many women, of how we lose ourselves in relationships and what it takes to find and come home to ourselves. As a copywriter, author, authentic marketing coach, and brave living mentor, she's supported hundreds of women to create profitable and purposeful businesses and authentic and audacious lives that light them up. Her journey has inspired her Live Your Yes philosophy, which is grounded in the belief that when women prioritize their joy, they become more magnetic and create greater success and fulfillment in all areas of their lives. Megan, it is such a joy to have you join us. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Noelle. It is such an absolute joy to be here with you.
We have many things to talk about. And I thought that I would leave it up to you to kind of jump in where you think the story begins. Because I often find that if I say, well, let's start here, people say, well, wait a minute, let's go back a little bit. So where would you start the story of transformation for you?
The morning I was sitting on my couch, journaling, crying, praying, when I was in a relationship with someone that I loved and in a business with him and had recreated my life after a divorce and thought it had all the elements that would make for such a beautiful life. And yet I'd been feeling so stuck, so unfulfilled, so at a loss for why was I feeling miserable? And it was that morning on the couch when it was like I was finally ready to hear what I sensed my intuition, the universe had been trying to show me. And that's when I was asking, like, what do I need to know? Show me, what do I need to hear? And I heard those words of, you've been living your maybe. And I got it right away. Like I had this image of the safe harbor that this man and this life was. And as tears were flowing down my face, I was like, so if I've been living my maybe, what am I to do? And I heard these three words. They literally felt like bubbled up from my belly into my chest. And I just heard, live your yes. In the moment, those three words resonated with me as like, oh, okay, I have a compass. I'm not quite sure what that means,
Right?
but I get that it's about following my heart. And I'll pause there because we can unpack that more about what that means. I'll just pause there. That to me was the beginning of a major shift in my life.
I feel like this is like a turning point that you had because you had gone through a divorce. So you moved from Colorado to California, right? How long ago had your divorce been? Was it several years? Was it like, I'm trying
No.
to like, okay.
This was one of my interesting choices that if you could do it over again, life story, I might have chosen a different thing, but I get to make different choices going forward. My divorce had only been official for several months when I started going through this process of letting the men in my life know that I needed to like let go of the relationship because I was changing my relationship with the masculine. And I reached out to a really old dear friend of mine. And he was like, for the first time in our friendship, we were both single at the same time. And there had always been this little spark between us. And so instead of saying, no, I'm still healing, I still need time to really find, instead I was like, oh, there's something really juicy here. I guess maybe this is where I'm being guided to. So long story short, it was less than a year that I had been divorced when I started to explore this other relationship.
You're in this relationship for how long until this all hits you? Is it within the year? Was it just like in terms of like how this all unfolded?
I have a funny memory about time and length of time because it's more of like, I get the sense of that chapter. That chapter might have been
Yes.
like 200 pages. Maybe it was like, we were together. I think it was like a couple of years.
And the reason I ask is only because I feel like there are times like that we feel these shifts where it's almost like a seed is planted. Like you said, there was something that was telling you that when you got to that place where you were journaling and these words came to you, did something come up in your mind a year before that? Was it literally like, how long was that feeling of unrest?
Months. There were months of unrest and months of just wrestling with it and feeling like this is not the way to find our way forward. Yeah, my questioning was, what's wrong? Like, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with this situation? Like, there was just all this judgment and shame. And there was also the awareness. What was also going on for me during this time was recognizing my default baseline way of being was melancholy because I leapt into this new relationship without fully grieving the end of my marriage, the end of those dreams, the ways that I had left myself in that relationship, in the marriage. Like I had not allowed time for that. So there was this melancholy in this new relationship. And so I remember sitting at my altar one morning, really having that wake up call of, okay, my baseline is melancholy. I need to change this. This is not my innate way of being. So there was this journey that I was in of how do I turn that volume up from melancholy to joy? So what's the healing there that needs to happen? And then as I'm healing that and allowing the grief to be there, then there was this period of time of just complete wrestling, unrest. What I came to realize was that I knew what was going on. I knew what needed to shift, but I was suppressing my own intuition because some part of me knew that if I really allowed myself to recognize what was going on, like everything needed to change. Because what I came to realize with the whole you're living your maybe, live your yes instead was that live your yes is about not only prioritizing your joy, and it's following our hearts, like really listening to what are the dreams and desires in our own selves and prioritizing that, letting that be our guide. And yet I wasn't letting my dreams and desires. I thought I was, Because here I was, with this man who I loved and creating a life over, but I wasn't actually including me and my heart. I was operating from this old unconscious story that I couldn't survive on my own, that I needed a man. Even though here I was, like, if you had looked at me from the outside in, like, strong woman starting her life over, willing to have the courage to make these big, bold choices. And yet still on an unconscious level, I thought I needed a man. That's why I had gone from a divorce into a new relationship so quickly. I was terrified to be in that space on my own. One of my girlfriends at the time, when I was telling her I was going to move to California, be with this man, she was like, what happened to the vision of Megan with a pickup truck and her dog? Because that had been a vision of mine. Like, I'm going to get a pickup truck. I'm going to get a dog. I'm going to like create my life over on my own. And she was like, what happened to that vision? And I remember being like, kind of annoyed. No, this is the path. Like, get on board. This is what I'm doing.
Yes.
This is what I'm choosing. I didn't want my unconscious choice to be questioned. And yet later, when I would meet up with this girlfriend again in visits to Colorado, I'd be like, you had a vision. You knew what else was possible for me with me listening to my heart and me untaming, unprogramming from this story that tells us we can't survive on our own as women. And so the journey of living my yes has essentially included this untaming, unwinding from these stories that say, you need a man to survive. You can't do this on your own. Because only then could I really include my full self in my life and not be opposed to having a partner in my future, but more of recognizing I would be choosing a partner to contribute to the wholeness that I already am, not from needing to survive.
I have to go back on this because I feel like there's a point that you made that is so important. And partly why I was asking you timing earlier, because I think that we all recognize that we have intuition. Some of us have experienced it in our lives really profoundly. I mean, when I got sober, that was big time. Intuition had been with me. I mean, I was hearing that voice for 5 years before I did anything about it. And I think that we tend to think that there's going to be a revelation at some point when all of it's going to come to us, but it's a process. And there's a lot of dumbing it down and making it go away and having a friend say something and you get a little ticked off. It's like those little things that kind of spark that people will say or that you'll start to recognize in yourself, but you kind of push it down because you have this idea of what you think it's supposed to look like.
Yes.
And I think the point that you make, which is so interesting and profound, I think, is that it takes time. Some of us, it's going to take 5 years. Some of us might have a seedling of something that we think needs to change in our lives today that we may not act on for the next year or two.
Mm-hmm.
But it's okay. And the judgment behind that, once you do get to that place, is just, it's not worth the energy. You recognize that it's a process, and you recognize it even more so once you get to the other side of it.
Totally. And I'm so glad you're bringing this up for us to like shine a spotlight on even more so. Because as I was mentioning, like the judgment doesn't help, right? Like that doesn't like, why didn't I listen sooner? That kind of thing. It's more like having the reflection is powerful. That's what gives us the keys to freedom. Having that reflection of, oh, I didn't listen to myself because I was really afraid that I couldn't survive on my own. I didn't listen to what I knew was true because it would need me to face what was untrue and what I'd based my life on up till now. So now knowing this going forward, when I have those glimmers of a truth, of an intuition, now I get to have this new conversation with myself. Am I willing to see what's really true for me now? Even if that means there might be some dismantling that occurs in my life, even if it means that it might be really uncomfortable for a while. And so it's like this updating our agreements with ourselves to recognize I am willing to know what is true for me, and I'm willing to act on it when it's correct timing to act on it. And it's like, cultivating this courage and confidence with ourselves of, I am more committed to living from the truth than I am from telling myself a story because it might make me feel better in the short term.
Right.
And
Well, and you'd recognize too, kind of what a waste of time. When we think back on what you just said, it's thinking back on it. Why did it take me so long? And I think the one quote that I will never forget that my coach said to me was, "You are exactly where you need to be today.
yes,
Nothing needs to be sped up. It's going to take what it takes." And so
totally.
it's this beautiful way of looking at how life unfolds, and it's in our own time. But I think that also helps to get us into that mode of like, I think I need to make this change because am I going to wait another, once you get that realization and you, it sounds like went through a really uncomfortable, I mean, you had to dismantle a relationship. That's a big deal.
Big deal. And we're living
Yeah.
together and a business. And to your point too, as far as it is a process, yes, because I can talk with you now about what I'm aware of with Live Your Yes over, that's come over the last 10 plus years. Yet at the time, I wasn't sure what that looked like to live my yes. I just knew what it wasn't. And so this phase of, yes, I was listening to my intuition now and following the steps. And I knew, okay, in order to live my yes, that means this relationship actually isn't correct for me anymore. So it was the conversations to dismantle that with him. Thank goodness for therapy. Like I totally remember sitting in couples therapy and bringing this truth forward. And it was so helpful to have support in those conversations because he wasn't able to hear me until he got to have his response. So just huge kudos to like the therapists, the coaches, the support that we pull in when we're having those experiences of dismantling, because we would not have been able to navigate that on our own. When we have been shutting ourselves down to our intuition, like you were talking about, once you became sober, like there was just so much there that it's like whether we're suppressing it from, whatever substances or like the unconscious, I'm not ready to hear it. It's like, it can take time to start to listen and heed the call and act on it. And yet the more we actually take the steps to move into that life that is in greater alignment with what is true for us, then it starts to come more and more. Because at the time, I didn't know what I was going to do next. I didn't know where I was going to go, where I was going to live. Then my dreams started to come through really vibrantly. And I started to actually listen to my dreams as guidance. They started to direct me as to where to go next. And so it just like, the intuition is there. We just get to be opening the channels to actually listening and acting on it. And that allows more and more and more to come through.
When you said that you are a people pleaser, because I think you had said that at a certain point, or it was in your bio that you kind of were, and you work with women on that. That's a hurdle, because I think listening to your own intuition is one thing. Being internally guided is something that it's a muscle that we continue to grow more and more as we do
Yeah.
it more and more. But
Yeah.
when we don't want to have to say no to people, that's really tough. I feel like that is something that it feels like, oh, that can be an inconvenience. No, it could cause people to stop in their tracks before they actually do what's going to bring them joy. And that's the part that I think is really, it's just a call out because it happens often. Did you feel like you had to get over that?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Let me just say, I would consider myself a recovering people pleaser.
I
And
love that.
just really acknowledging those people pleasing tendencies are rooted in cultural conditioning, in the codependent relationships that come about as a result of much of the conditioning that we received. Like I was saying, my unconscious drive was the thought that I can't survive on my own. So there's
Yeah.
this programming that we receive, and then partnered with that, if there's this unconscious drive of I can't survive on my own, then you better make sure the person you're choosing to hold on to is pleased with you. Because if you disrupt things, they could go away. So understanding where that training comes from is so important because it gives us compassion for ourselves. So as far as like what you're saying too about like, it can be so hard to say no. And yet we're either creating our life or destroying our life based on, are we actually saying yes to what we want to say yes to, or are we saying no to it? And so I even remember when this man asked me to marry him, we had just had a conversation within the weeks of his proposal of how we saw that down the road, but not yet. Yet when he proposed to me, I totally went to this place of saying, now, and I just want to say, I love this man. I still love this man. He is a dear man. This has nothing to do with him and everything to do with me in my response to him. And I said yes. And yet, when I was having a conversation with another girlfriend, telling her, guess what? I got engaged. She was like, Maggie, what's going on? The last time we talked, you two were like struggling with things. And again, I was kind of like annoyed that she was calling me out because come on, get on board. This is what's happening. We're getting married, and again, like not wanting to listen to the dissent, the voice that was actually like, are you really listening to your intuition? And the truth is I wasn't. And I ended up ending the engagement. Do I have regrets? No, because I learned so much through the process. And yet to say yes to a proposal, because there was that fear inside of what happens if I say no, everything's going to change now. I wasn't ready for all that change there. So exercising those muscles. And I actually have a free gift if listeners are interested in it. It's how to say yes to yourself without feeling guilty, that helps break down the steps into how do you start to say yes to yourself when there's been all this training to say no to ourselves and say yes to others in just a really pragmatic step-by-step way. Because it's learning new skills and it's learning these new muscles of how do I say no to someone else so that I can say yes to myself.
Even just the first part of that, saying no to someone else, even if you haven't gone to the depths of this is me speaking my truth, maybe you're not even there yet. You're just having to be able to vocalize a no to someone. And it could be something as simple. People, say yes to plans they don't want to make. They might say yes to a friend that they don't like. It's things like that you can ease into that and get more used to it. I know. And I mean, I'm cut from the same cloth, Megan. I have been a people pleaser all my life. I think as I hit certain milestones of age, which is so weird, but I feel like when I hit 40, something sort of happened and I was like, wow, I don't have that need so much to people please anymore. I had a need for a very long time. I think it can slowly progress to more and more putting yourself first, frankly, which a lot of people don't like to think about because they think that that's being selfish.
Totally. Can we talk about that?
Yes, that's a biggie.
It's a biggie. And what you're speaking to as far as with age too, like I absolutely agree. And there's this whole movement of the midlife awakening that from what I've seen, I turned 50 this last summer and I see it in my own life. I see it in my clients. I see it in women, friends, colleagues going through perimenopause and menopause and just the changes with that, as well as this age. There's this rumbling of all the ways we have given up ourselves, all the ways we've said no to ourselves, ignored our intuition, dismissed what was truly our experience with something because it wasn't pleasant to be with. All those ways, there's like this rumbling of no more, like the dragon of the hot flashes awakens and it's just like, and so there's
Yes.
so much power that's been dormant in us that I know is awakening, and people pleasing is a great way to be trapping our power in this being likable, being pleasing. Oh, she's so pleasant, and the rumble and the dragon is awakening saying no more. Cause there's a recognition of like, life is short. I've got a few more decades. How do I want to live them? I'm done with making other people the priority. And so the whole live your yes philosophy is based in this practice of prioritizing ourselves and being willing to have other people judge us as selfish. Because here's the thing. What a great way to control a woman is to say, oh, you want to take time for yourself right now? When like all these other people need us, you're so selfish. That flies in the face of our fear of being seen as bad and wrong and being kicked out of the tribe and not being able to survive on our own. So it's being able to receive that judgment as a recognition that that's just the training that we've all received. They're just reacting from that training of like, you're so selfish. And the truth is, when a woman is prioritizing herself, she is actually able to fill her cup. And a woman's innate qualities, these feminine innate qualities of tending to others, is a gift of a woman to be able to recognize. There's this African proverb that if you educate a man, you educate an individual. When you educate a woman, you educate an entire village, because a woman is going to share her wisdom, her education with everyone else, anyone else who's wanting to learn. When a woman is taking time to prioritize her dreams, her desires, there is a way that actually benefits everyone. Yet we've just often shut down with being told it's selfish. It can't possibly help everyone else, so don't do it. That's a lie. It's time to let that go and recognize the gift we are when we actually follow our dreams and our desires. We create things that open up doorways for so many other people.
What I find often really amazing is that we are extremely strong, right? I mean, women are so strong. We take on a ton. It's pretty amazing. And when I think of the women that I've talked to on this podcast, it's like, come on. I mean, this is crazy. We are very multidimensional people, but it's something that is ingrained in us. It's false beliefs that we've grown up with. It is ways that we view ourselves that don't put ourselves front and center because that's being too big. It's such a shame. And yet, I think when people awaken to it, and I totally agree with you that I think that there is definitely a wave of women now that are getting to a place where they're like, this is nuts. Like, I need to do what makes me feel joy. And if I don't, time is limited here in this life. And I think that when we all get to it at a different time, but I think that it is so profound to come to that realization. And then once you do, you just take off. You just take off, right? I mean, and that's why I want to talk with you about just you in working with women. And I know, and please do share, we'll put that in the show notes too, just the gift that you were offering about helping people to really recognize. What do you find often with women that you work with? I mean, what is a common thing that comes up with them?
One of the big things, just like we have this misperception about selfish as a judgment that we need to avoid getting, so therefore don't prioritize ourselves kind of thing. There's that myth. Let's let that go. And right. The myth about being strong leads a lot of women to feel like I should be able to figure this out on my own. I shouldn't need support. I should push through this. I shouldn't be struggling with this. I have so many privileges. I have clean water. I have electricity. I have an education. I can read. I have technology. I have a business. Like there's all these things of like guilt, and what that can end up doing for a woman is having her not get the support that can actually allow her to receive so much more, the support, her own wisdom. Like, for example, the woman who feels like she should be able to not have to have needs and just be able to take care of everyone else. Like, that's the fastest path to resentment and burnout. And for a woman in business who's like, I should be able to figure this out on my own, she tries to lone wolf it, doesn't want to invest in support for herself, because whenever we're investing and working with someone else, we're actually really investing in ourselves, our dreams, our desires. And so I invite this new a 180-degree flip around strong. Like there are so many ways we as women are strong in the like, get it done, whether it's a crisis or the daily demands, or like you can tend to 100 things on your plate. when like we are designed for that. We are designed to like see all the different things that need to get done, and we can, we could tend to it. But what if our strength can also be our biggest challenge? Because in our gift of being able to see all the many different things that need to be tended to, recognizing what if what makes us strong is not tending to all the things, but being aware of that and then looking at what is mine to tend to and what is mine to tend to now. And what if investing in ourselves is actually the way that does allow us to have even more of our strength? That receiving support doesn't mean we're weak because we can't do it on our own. It actually means we're smart and recognize where that's not in my wheelhouse. I'm going to hire a bookkeeper and he's a guy and he's great. Or, it's not in my wheelhouse to know what are the best tires to get for my car. So it's okay to ask the guy at the dealership or the guy at the garage or the woman, friend who knows these things. Like, it's okay to invest that money in that support to help me bring this business, this dream, this book, whatever it is, forward. And so that's one of the big things that I see show up, as well as women when they're doubting themselves or they're not trusting their own guidance. There can be this confusion of like, well, wait a second, you're encouraging me to trust and listen to my intuition and my guidance. So why would I need anyone outside of me to help me? They're just going to tell me what they think I should do. And I just want to say, when you're working with the correct kind of coach or therapist or practitioner for you, there's always going to be this balance of someone who invites you and supports you and listening to what is your guidance, as well as can complement that with the area of expertise or the coaching or the support that can help you complement what you already know and move forward and be in action with what you know. And oftentimes, like, it can still take me support from a coach or therapist to help me get really clear with, yeah, what is my truth here? What is my intuition guiding me towards? Help me clear out the things that stop me from acting on that so I can keep moving forward. There's the unprogramming and the strengthening what we know and gaining the confidence in that to show up really empowered.
We talk a lot about self-care. I hate to use that term because it's so overused, but I think there is an element of self-care in that, right? I am seeking support. I am seeking someone to hold the space for me to actually take time to ruminate on this kind of thing and to look deeper and to ask myself those questions. And oftentimes people will spark those questions for you or will bring things kind of like your friend, right? You can't do it all internally because you are still playing the same tapes that you've had for years. So to have somebody push that a little bit and to have somebody kind of move those things forward for you in a way that is not totally throwing you out of your comfort zone, but making it uncomfortable enough for you to grow. And that I think is where, when people say, oh, coaching and this and that, coaches are, I think I've had a coach for many, many years, and I think it's the best investment I've ever made. And that is just because I know myself, and I know that if I'm not pushing myself further and further, I'm not going to do that on my own because I only know what I know. It just helps to have that. And like you said, it could be anything. It could be a practitioner, a therapist. But I do think you bring up such a good point. We want to take it all on ourselves. I don't want to ask for help because that makes me look weak.
Totally.
It's kind of like when you say you don't want to set boundaries because you think you're being mean. It's like, no, furthest thing from the truth. That's being kind to people by setting boundaries.
Completely. And I celebrate self-care. And this is like what we're talking about is feels like the truest and the most essential kind of self-care of our own growth, our own journey of empowerment. And there was something you were saying too about we're in our world. This was the other thing I wanted to speak to too. There can often be so much shame that we're struggling with the things that we're struggling with, or that we're still dealing with those things. And we have the judgment of like, I know better. That shouldn't still be an issue. And the shame loves secrecy. And the shame can keep us in this space of like looking down and not wanting to get that support. The other thing about shame and the secrecy is that we can have these stories going on in our head that seem so true. that seem so true. You're worthless. You're so stupid. Nobody's going to want to work with you. Just keep your mouth shut. Don't rock the boat, because then, you're lucky enough that they're sticking around. Like all this stuff that feels so true. Even when we begin to have the awareness of like, I know it's just a story my mind is telling me, but it's so true. That's one of the things I love working with women on, is recognizing the stories that we're telling ourselves. And this work with women started with copywriting and marketing, and like, what's the story that you're sharing with the world about your work and how you can help them and the transformation. And then as I was working with women with copywriting, I was realizing we can have the most beautiful website or sales page or words, but if you're still telling yourself a story in here, I'm worthless, nobody wants to work with me, guess what? There's going to be this huge invisible shield out here that stops people from actually signing up for your thing and coming in to work with you, because there's this invisible shield saying, well, you don't want to work with me because I'm worthless. Like, why would you want to work with me, kind of thing. So the work starting from the copywriting and marketing led to the work on what's the story you're telling yourself and hear about yourself, and really beginning to change those narratives. Because that's everything. The story that we're telling ourselves about ourselves is everything. It's like, is that deadening you, or is that like empowering you and actually speaking to the truth of your value, your worth, your power? And ultimately, it's about taking the mic back from all those stories that are saying, like, who do you think you are? And actually realizing we're the authors of our lives. Like, we get to narrate this. We get to be the heroine of our own lives. And it's a radical change from a world that has told us we're only supporting characters.
This brings me to my next question for you, because I love that you being a writer and a copywriter for the amount of years that you've been. And I know you journal. You've talked a little bit about that. And you just spoke to how we speak to ourselves and what we think, the thoughts that go through our heads and how that can shape us. Talk to me a little bit just about, because I think journaling is a really important thing when we are trying to decipher what's going on inside. And I know this from having journaled for many, many years, that I oftentimes would have something come out on the page where I'd be like, what? Like, what? You don't even recognize that that's what's been going on in your head in a lot of ways. And I feel like when we talk about exercises that people can embark on to get a little bit closer to understanding what's going on versus, just kind of listening to your own thoughts and then trying to either talk yourself down or whatever. So tell me more about just your experience with journaling, because it sounds like that was your pivotal point when you were kind of
Yes.
sitting down, pen to page in that moment.
Oh, this is so juicy. I love talking about journaling because I love journaling. It's been like since my 20s. I've gone through stages where it was my daily thing. I worked with my dreams every morning. I'd spend like an hour at least with my journaling. There would be phases where I didn't do it every day, but I would like do it as often as I could. Anyway, it's been a process and a journey. And what I love so much about journaling is we create a sanctuary of a safe space to let everything out onto the page, where as much as possible, we're not bringing judgment to it. We're just letting ourselves hear ourselves, feel ourselves, have the emotions, have the things that we often haven't had the courage to say or express to anyone else. And so it's just this safe space. And the gift of what I love to use, and this is what I've shared, I've done journaling workshops over the years, and I love bringing in journaling prompts, because like you're saying, a question or a prompt can help catalyze just this whole new different, just like a prompt will be like, let's get you started on a different kind of way of looking at this, or a different thought stream, or a different stream of insight. And it can just like be a cork that comes out of the bottle, and all of a sudden there's this whole flow that comes forward and surprises us. And so there's a lot of journaling prompts out there. Like if you ever wanted to Google them, I've created a lot of journaling prompts for women. I've got this private Facebook community called Live Your Yes. And there's a lot of journaling prompts in there in the files section, because I've provided them for my podcast. So to help women go even deeper into these topics. And if you just wanted a few journaling prompts right here today, there's some that I could share with you that are just great. They could be for like daily use or weekly use, where it's like, One question could be, what is most important for me to know now? So that's one. Another one that I love to ask that helps us, well, you'll hear it. It's the thing I don't want you to know about me is. And what I love about this prompt is that it helps us to start to melt the shame and actually give voice to the thing that we've been hiding and saying is bad and wrong about us. Like, and I'll just even be super vulnerable and share with you like how I might respond to this. I mean, the thing about a journal is nobody else ever needs to say how you'd answer this question, right? Like, this is your complete private Idaho kind of thing. Like, I think that's the
Yes.
name of a movie. Like, this is your privacy. And yet just to give an example of like what I might share in a journaling prompt would be the thing I don't want you to know about me right now is that I've been in a valley over the last couple weeks. I've been doing some deep inner work to heal another round of healing with my inner child. And I have been facing some big grief and big terror and this big fear of scarcity. And I am not going to have enough and I am not going to be enough. And that's been really freaking rough. I haven't wanted anyone to see me. I've been wearing my hoodie. And like, I could go on and on in my journal about this to go even deeper and deeper. And yet, when we have that courage, I've done these workshops that I call brave writing, brave living,
Mhm.
because my experience is the braver I'm willing to be on the page, the braver I'm willing to have that like honest reckoning of truth telling, the more what I write on the page begins to unravel my own, the lies that I was buying and gives the truth more power. That ripples out in my life. And so the next time I might say yes instead of no when no's the truth, I can catch myself and find that courage to say no out loud because I've been saying it in my journal. So it's like living yoga off the mat. It's like
Yes.
there's a practice of what we do in our journaling does have ripple effects in our lives.
Absolutely. Well, and it's an exercise. I mean, I think of mine as a practice, but not everybody does. Not everybody does it every day. But truly, like you said, I love that it's a parallel to yoga because it is like it's a practice. It's something that if you keep going back and keep going back, you will get more and more out of it. And everybody's different, right? It's going to be
Exactly.
different for everyone. I want to get to your book because I think it's so exciting. And I know that this is something that's coming up for you. So you have written books in the past, correct? You have been an author for several years, right?
I've written nonfiction. I've written chapters in a couple books. I wrote a book with a nonprofit in Uganda called We Have Something to Say. True stories from adolescent girls growing up in the slums of Kampala. That's a
Oh,
whole
wow.
amazing
Wow.
adventure of an experience. It's stories, 16 short stories of these girls and their experiences of going through the nonprofit, which is called Girl Up Initiative Uganda, going through their empowerment programs and just I
Oh
was
my
on the
God.
ground in Uganda. Like, talk about following your intuition. And this isn't the book that you were asking me about. That's fiction, but that was nonfiction.
Yep.
And that was a whole amazing experience of doing crowdfunding campaign to raise the money, doing photo shoots with a team photographer on the nonprofit team, hearing their stories.
That's like a whole other episode for us. We got to do another one on just that because I want to hear about it.
That would
Yeah.
be so fun. So that was a whole journey. So that was a whole example of how grief catalyzed an adventure of a lifetime. So lots of articles, nonfiction. And yet, when I was a young child, I loved creative writing. I loved writing these stories and just getting lost in my imagination, like getting lost and getting found, and the power of words that could create this whole other reality. And so, after my divorce, after I ended the engagement with that other man, after I started my life on my own again in Santa Cruz, California, I woke up one morning, sat down, and this whole image, this whole scene poured out of me onto the page. This woman in a cottage in Santa Cruz. And that began this book writing itself through me. It was a journey of over 10 years of
Wow.
writing the book and then it was just kind of like the bare bones, and then it went underground again, and then it came up, and then it went, because I was on a journey of becoming the woman who could ultimately finish the book. And so I finished the book. It's called The Forever Woman in January of 2023. And I signed a publishing deal with She Writes Press last fall. And now I'm on the path to publishing. It won't be published until the summer of 2025. So maybe we'll do another conversation closer to then. And yet this whole journey, the whole concept of the Forever Woman, and the title is probably going to change. Just I heard from my publisher that I love this concept of the Forever Woman is a woman who has her back and is no longer going to leave herself in relationship. And yet so often we don't realize we've left ourselves in relationship until we find ourselves in those places. Like I shared in the beginning of this conversation of like stuck, unfulfilled. What's wrong? I thought this was everything I wanted. It's not. And it's then that we realize, oh my gosh, I've been leaving myself. I've actually been including myself in what I want in this relationship. So the Forever Woman is that invitation of coming home to ourselves and committing to, I'm not looking for a forever man or a forever woman outside of myself to be my partner who's going to save me. It doesn't mean we're not going to be in partnership, but it's about, I'm going to be my own forever woman for myself, knowing that I can only ever have true intimacy with another when I have that for myself.
I cannot wait to read this. I loved that title. When I saw the title, I was like, oh, that's good. It's just good. I love
it too. Here's a great example of like, I love that name. I almost got a tattoo of it. And I'm going to listen to what professional experts have to say who have been publishing books for years, who have insight into the market. I'm going to totally listen to what their suggestions are and ultimately run it through my big magic of my book and my, my body, like what lights up for me. And that for me is that marriage of I'm listening to myself and I'm listening to their input and making a choice that's going to help my book reach as many people as possible. Cause that's ultimately what I want, what we're up to. So I just wanted to seize that moment as an example of like, I'm not going to say, no, I'm not listening to outside input because my intuition knows. It's like, this is what we came up with so far. How can they possibly help it be even better? So
remaining open, right? That's the whole theme here, right? It's like remaining open to everything that comes your way, whether it's intuition that you want to hear or don't want to hear.
Yep.
Megan, this has been so much fun. We really will. I think we're going to need to have another episode because I want to hear more about that initial book. But I thank you so much for your time and all that you've given us today, because first of all, it's not only a lot to think about, but I think that hopefully some of our listeners might have some shifts in their own minds just about possibility, their own capabilities, what maybe they've been listening to and ignoring, all of those things that sometimes we need to think about more than once. And when somebody brings it up again, the third time, you realize, maybe that's something to pay attention to.
One thing I'm aware of is that I've been for much of my life a head tripper and trying to figure things out and think my way through issues that are actually not resolved through the thinking mind. They're actually resolved through feeling in my body and tapping into my body wisdom. So I'm a huge advocate for, yes, the gift of reflection and writing and journaling, and also getting into our bodies and listening to the wisdom that comes through there. So I just wanted to say that as far as like to adding to that. And I also just wanted to say as an acknowledgement of you, Noelle, like I have so enjoyed this conversation, and I just want to give a shout out to the Day by Day book that you've created, because you've created something. Listeners, if you haven't checked out Noelle's Day by Day book, what I love about this is that it's journaling meets scheduler meets tracker meets a way of tracking our internal world throughout the days and helping us see the patterns. And I know for myself, like I was sharing, I've been through a valley recently. And when we're in a valley, it can seem like those peaks that we were on never existed.
Yes.
And yet with something like this, we can begin to track, oh, what was the story I was telling myself? How long have I really been in this valley? Oh, I was in the peak the other day. Oh, and I was in the middle place for a while. And what was I telling myself then? What was going on? And so it
Yes.
just gives like riverbanks to the flow that it's so powerful. I'm excited to start using it.
I am so excited that you have it, Megan. And it is truly, I think the spirit behind that book is kind of what we talked about. Journaling, I've told people this many times, journaling saved my life. I mean, it really did when I got sober. And there is something to be said about retrospective, looking back,
Yes.
recognizing what to celebrate, catching those wins just as much as those challenges. And so I'm pleased that you like it. And I hope that you enjoy it. Yes, it has helped a lot of people. And I think hopefully it will be helping a lot more. So any way you journal, I always tell people, it doesn't matter. It could be on a notebook. Doesn't matter. Just do it. But that is one way, not the only way.
Completely.
So Megan, thank you again. I really appreciate you. And like I said, this is not the end of our conversation. We will have many more.
We do. And thank you so much for creating the space for these conversations that allow for more of us to navigate through change with more confidence, with more ease, with more eyes wide open and hearts wide open, to actually be able to have it be journeys of coming home to ourselves, reclaiming our power. So I love what you're up to with this podcast. It's been a total honor.
It's been such a pleasure to have you too. All right. Well, that's it for now. Until next time. Thanks for listening to the Journeys Through Change podcast. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or really wherever you get your podcasts. And be sure to follow us and leave a review if you've enjoyed this episode. And share it with a friend or on social media to spread the good word, so more women like you can find us and join in on the fun. For more information on the podcast or Day by Day book, go to livedaybyday.com.